The first violation notice appeared on my door on a Tuesday morning, taped so aggressively that it left residue on the freshly painted wood. I stood there in my bathrobe, coffee mug in hand, staring at the official-looking document with the HOA letterhead emblazoned across the top. Notice of violation. Unauthorized pet, it read. Resident at 2847 Maple Grove Lane is in breach of HOA Covenant Section 7.3.2 regarding undisclosed pet ownership. A large dog has been observed on the property without proper registration. Fine, $250. Compliance required within 72 hours. I blinked. Then I read it again. Then I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. I don't have a dog. I've never had a dog. I'm allergic to dogs. But apparently, according to the HOA, I was now a proud pet owner. I should have known this had Linda Hutchison written all over it. Linda, our neighborhood self-appointed HOA enforcer, had made it her personal mission to find violations where none existed. She'd previously cited my neighbor for a mailbox that was eggshell instead of cream, and she'd measured another resident's grass with a ruler to prove it exceeded the 2-inch maximum by a 1/4 inch. I crumpled the notice and tossed it in the recycling bin. Surely this was a mistake. Surely someone would realize their error. I was wrong. 3 days later, another notice appeared. This one was more aggressive. Second notice. Failure to comply with pet registration. Evidence of large dog confirmed by multiple witnesses. Fine increased to $500. Legal action will be pursued if animal is not registered or removed within 48 hours. Multiple witnesses? I stood in my driveway, looking around my property as if a phantom dog might suddenly materialize. My yard was empty except for a ceramic garden gnome and a bird feeder. No dog. No evidence of any dog. I decided it was time to confront this head-on. I pulled up the HOA contact list and dialed Linda's number. She answered on the first ring, her voice sharp and efficient. Linda Hutchison, HOA Compliance Officer. Hi, Linda. This is Marcus from 2847 Maple Grove. I received. Mr. Bennett. Yes, I've been expecting your call. Have you registered your dog yet? I took a deep breath. Linda, I don't have a dog. Silence. Then, Mr. Bennett, I have personally witnessed a large brown dog in your backyard on 3 separate occasions. I also have statements from 2 other residents who have seen the animal. That's impossible because I don't own a dog. I'm allergic to dogs. Are you calling me a liar, Mr. Bennett? I'm saying there's been a mistake. Maybe you saw a dog in someone else's yard? The houses on this street look similar. I know which house is yours, Mr. Bennett. I have photographs. That stopped me cold. You have photographs? Of what? Of your dog. I'll be submitting them with my formal complaint to the HOA board. I suggest you retain legal counsel. She hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, completely baffled. Photographs? Of a dog I didn't own? This had escalated from absurd to genuinely concerning. If Linda was filing formal complaints and threatening legal action, I needed to take this seriously. That evening, I went door to door to my immediate neighbors. Mrs. Chun, who lived to my left, shook her head when I asked if she'd seen a dog in my yard. No dog, she said kindly. But Linda came by asking me to sign something saying I'd seen one. I told her no. I see you every morning. Marcus, you leave for work, you come home. No dog. The plot thickened. Linda wasn't just mistaken. She was actively soliciting false statements. My neighbor to the right, Tom, had a similar story. Yeah, she came by with his clipboard. Said something about HOA violations and community standards. I told her I hadn't seen any dog. She seemed annoyed. Armed with this information, I decided to attend the next HOA board meeting. It was held in the community center on Thursday evening. About 20 residents filled the folding chairs, and Linda sat at the front table with 3 board members, a stack of folders in front of her. When the floor opened for new business, Linda stood, clearing her throat dramatically. I'd like to address a serious compliance issue, she began, opening one of her folders. We have a resident who is flagrantly violating our pet policy. Despite multiple notices, Mr. Marcus Bennett continues to harbor an unregistered large dog on his property. She pulled out several printed photographs and held them up for the board to see. I leaned forward, squinting at the images. My jaw dropped. The dog in Linda's photographs was my neighbor's chocolate brown lawn ornament. It was a life-size decorative statue of a Labrador that Mrs. Chen's daughter had given her as a gift. It sat in Mrs. Chen's garden, which was visible from the side of my property. I couldn't help it. I started laughing. It began as a chuckle, then built into full-blown laughter. I doubled over my chair, tears streaming down my face. The absurdity of it all, the violation notices, the threats of legal action, Linda's absolute conviction that she caught me red-handed. It was too much. Linda's face turned crimson. "Mr. Bennett, this is not a laughing matter. That's not a dog." I managed between gasps. "That's Mrs. Chen's garden statue." The room fell silent. Several residents pulled out their phones, looking up at Linda's photographs and then at me. One of the board members, an older gentleman named Harold, reached for the photos. He studied them carefully, then looked up at Linda. "Linda, is this statue the dog you've been reporting?" "It's clearly an animal," Linda insisted, her voice rising. "I've seen it move." "It's concrete," I said, wiping my eyes. "It weighs about 40 pounds. It doesn't move." I saw it in different positions. Mrs. Chun, who had attended the meeting, stood up. "My daughter turns it to face different directions when she visits. She thinks it's funny. It's a garden decoration." The room erupted in murmurs and stifled laughter. Linda's face went from red to purple. "This is harassment," she shouted, pointing at me. "He's been violating HOA rules for weeks, and now he's trying to humiliate me in front of everyone." "Linda," Harold said carefully, "it appears there's been a misunderstanding. There is no dog. There is no violation. You're all blind." Linda grabbed her phone. "I'm calling the police. This is conspiracy. This is defamation. He's laughing at me, and that's assault." I stopped laughing, suddenly alert. "Wait, what?" But Linda was already dialing, her hands shaking with rage. "Yes, I need to report an assault. A man is attacking me at the community center on Oakwood Drive." Harold stood up. "Linda, please, let's all calm down. He assaulted me with laughter. He humiliated me in public. I want him arrested." The next 15 minutes were surreal. 2 police officers arrived, looking confused as they entered the community center. Linda immediately rushed over to them, gesturing wildly and pointing at me. "That's him. He attacked me. He's been violating HOA covenants, and when I tried to enforce them, he laughed at me, in front of everyone." The younger officer glanced at his partner, who suppressed a smile. "Ma'am, laughing isn't a crime. It's assault, verbal assault, emotional assault." The senior officer addressed the room. "Can someone explain what's happening here?" Harold stepped forward and calmly explained the situation, the violation notices, the photographs of the statue, the misunderstanding. The officer listened, nodding occasionally, and then asked to see the photographs. When he saw the image of Mrs. Chen's concrete Labrador, he pressed his lips together tightly, clearly trying not to laugh himself. "Ma'am," he said to Linda, "this appears to be a civil matter regarding HOA rules, not a criminal issue. And I can confirm that laughing, even in a way that hurts someone's feelings, is not assault. But he's breaking the rules. Someone has to enforce community standards." The officer's expression softened slightly. "I understand you care about your neighborhood, but there is no dog, there's no violation, and there's no crime here tonight." Linda stood there, trembling, her carefully constructed case crumbling around her. The officers left after confirming no one needed any assistance, and the meeting slowly dissolved as residents filed out, many of them glancing back at Linda with mixtures of pity and amusement. Harold approached me as I gathered my things. "Mr. Bennett, on behalf of the board, I apologize for this entire situation. We'll be sending you a formal letter clearing you of all violations and refunding any fines you may have paid." "I didn't pay them," I said. "I knew I didn't have a dog." He smiled wearily. "Smart man. We'll also be reviewing our enforcement procedures. This got out of hand." As I walked to my car, I saw Linda sitting alone in the parking lot, still clutching her folder of photographs. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. She'd been so certain, so convinced of her rightness, that she'd never stopped to question whether she might be wrong. But then I thought about the stress she'd put me through, the threats of legal action, the violation notices, and the attempt to have me arrested for laughing. My sympathy evaporated. I drove home, parked in my driveway, and looked over at Mrs. Chen's garden. The concrete Labrador sat there, eternally patient, facing toward the street. I walked over and patted on the head. "Thanks for being a good boy," I said. "You're the best imaginary dog I never had." From that day forward, Linda never filed another violation notice against me. In fact, she stopped being the HOA compliance officer entirely, resigning quietly a month later. The neighborhood became noticeably more peaceful. And Mrs. Chen's daughter? She brought over a second statue, a concrete cat this time. She placed it right next to the dog. "Just in case Linda comes back," she said with a wink. "We wouldn't want you to be in violation for having an unregistered cat, too." I laughed again, freely this time, knowing that no one could sue me for it. Some battles are worth fighting, even if they're completely ridiculous. Especially if they're completely ridiculous. The dog statue still sits in Mrs. Chen's garden, a permanent reminder that sometimes the most absurd situations make the best stories. And every time I see it, I smile, grateful that I live in a neighborhood where a concrete dog can spark such chaos, and where laughter, thankfully, will never be a crime.